Why is there unequal funding in public schools?
This has been the rising question in recent news. The answer is simple. Public school funding comes from federal, state, and local taxes, but almost half of the funds for public school funding comes from local property taxes. This is why the system generates large funding differences between communities in poverty and wealthy communities. These differences exist within states and even within different districts. The graph shown gives us a good idea of how funding is really going down. The graph shows us the difference from last year to this year in money spent per student. As you can see, majority of the funding per student has gone down. The only 3 states that have gone up in funding is Massachusetts, Maryland, and South Carolina. Wisconsin and New York have the most funding change, with $635 and $585 less than the year before. This means that in Wisconsin, each student will be $635 less on things they need than last year. This funding change affects the student in more ways than you may think. A student that has more of the things they need provided for them equals a happier and better student with less stress put on them to overcompensate for the funding loss.
I think we've all noticed a couple things in various situations.
I think mainly in the arts and music. Also in the technical.
As you can see, unequal funding is the main cause of school funding issues. We believe that in order to have a decent amount of funding for each school in the United States, there should be equal funding throughout. This does not mean that a school in a small state, such as Rhode Island, should have the same amount of funding as in a large state, such as California. We think it is best if schools don't base their funding mainly on local property taxes, but on state taxes overall. The taxes for school funding that was collected should then be equally distributed throughout schools in the states. The 2016 presidential candidates should enlighten more on the unequal funding situation, because even if we only begin now to solve little bits of unequal funding, it could help the future of local public schools in a large way.
Statistics shows that we've had about a doubling in the student population since 1950, and yet the number of total school personnel has gone up by about 400%. Teachers only 250%, but the number of non-teaching staff has increased by 700% over that same period, when the number of students has only just about doubled.
The clip showed why many teachers are getting let go from work because of the funding for schools dropping. The schools are using the money they get for funding to hire so much more non-teaching staff, about 700% to be exact, but more teachers are being let go than hired. The student increase is there, but not so many kids that there needs to be so much more non-teaching staff. In order to solve this problem, there should be more teachers that are needed, but less non-teaching staff. The extra money that the schools get from not hiring so many people can be used for supplies they need and other funding. This is how the schools should effectively use the funding that they do receive.
The economic disaster of 2008 hit education pretty hard, as I think most people know. Specifically here, I can't speak to other districts too well, but we've had a number of furloughs occur, which means teachers basically get dismissed. Not based on teaching experience or ability, but just simply based on budget cuts. That's affected our scheduling quite a bit, our ability to provide certain courses.
The main issue is that some schools feel like they are not funded enough, while others feel like they are funded sufficiently. Along with this, many homeowners are feeling the pressure of property taxes, and some have even had to leave their homes because of the high property taxes.
Troy Michelle, it's a debt that equals less than $2,000. Deborah Caley says she paid cash for her home, but it now belongs to the county. She has until Friday to convince a Kalamazoo County judge that she was never properly informed that she was in any danger of losing her house. If she can't, she'll lose everything she owns.
My life savings are wrapped up in this house. My children's future is in that house.
As you can see, the schools need to learn how to efficiently use the funds they get by focusing more on teachers and students. They should host more fundraisers and get people in the community involved. Because if we are paying so much property tax, where is the money going? People's pockets. That's where the money is going. It is not being used in ways it should be. We need to get the communities together in America and make sure that our hard-earned money is going somewhere other than into the school union's pockets. because some of it is not going to the students, the schools, and the hardworking teachers. The funding needs to be based mainly on state taxes, and even though it will be hard, because many of the overfunded schools will become less funded, America will better from it. All schools will be decently funded, not just some. We believe this is a large issue that the candidates should be focusing on, because schools are where the youth go, to grow, to be educated, and someday we will be your leaders. If we could only figure out a way that then the students will become so much better adults in the future.
I want every child in our country, not just the granddaughter of a former president or a former secretary of state, but every child to have the chance to live up to his or her God-given potential. Please join me in that mission. Let's do it together. Thank you all so much.